lazy eye. What's the only thing that's distinctive about him? That he has no birthmarks.
Light skin.
Beautiful, healthy baby boy. 7-month-old baby boy.
What if the story we've been told was never hers to begin with? What if the real mastermind, the one nobody saw coming, was standing in the background, calm, controlled, and quietly letting the world point its finger at Rebecca? We were all told the same narrative: a desperate mother, a random attacker, a disappearance in daylight. But beneath that story is a man most people know very little about, Jake Haro. Before August 14th, Jake already had a criminal conviction for harming a child, a violent past, weapons charges, CPS records, and yet somehow he managed to fade into the background while the world scrutinized Rebecca's every word. But what if it was never Rebecca's story? What if she was just a pawn in his? The enhanced footage, the strange calm in his voice, the way he avoided the media, not out of grief, but out of calculation. The moment detectives seized Jake's vehicle, the case changed. The realization hit like a cold wave. The father wasn't just a bystander. He was a suspect, and not just any suspect, the one with a documented history of hurting children. Imagine the possibility. He orchestrates the disappearance. He pressures Rebecca to follow the story. He lets her crumble publicly while he stays silent, clean, unreachable. Could it be that Rebecca lied because she was scared, not of the public, but of Jake? Could it be that Jake knew exactly how to make an entire town blame the wrong parent? While Rebecca stumbles in her interviews, Jake keeps his distance. While she contradicts herself, he stays quiet. While the world judges her face, he hides whatever he knows behind sealed lips and a lawyer. And that leads to the most chilling question of all. Was Emmanuel's disappearance not a random act, but a controlled plan, executed by a father who already knew how to hurt a child, and who possibly manipulated the mother into taking the fall? As the evidence turns toward a single man, the one with the criminal past, the seized vehicle, and the silence of someone hiding something, you have to wonder, is Jake Haro the real reason baby Emmanuel is gone? This isn't just a missing person case. This may be a father covering up a crime and letting the mother burn for it. So before we let this become just another missing child case, listen carefully, because what if our silence, our distraction, our scrolling, is the very thing that ensures this baby is never found? If hearing this makes you uncomfortable, good. It should, because babies don't just disappear, lies do. But before we dive into this, kindly subscribe to our channel if you believe in fighting for justice. We've just crossed 4,000 subscribers, all because of your support, and we need that same energy to reach 5,000, then 6,000, and then 10,000. So go ahead and drop your fingerprints on that subscribe button and where you're watching from, because wherever you are, the day this vision is fulfilled, I will send my appreciation straight to you. Let's keep building this community that fights for justice together. Look closely, not at Rebecca, but at him. At the photos the police enhanced. At the quiet man standing in the background while the world stares at the mother. The man with a criminal past and dead eyes in every still frame. That's Jake Haro. That's the father. And maybe that's the reason Emmanuel is gone. The enhanced images surfaced online. His face, his posture, the way he doesn't look panicked. Not frantic, not even devastated. Just controlled. While Rebecca appeared hysterical, disoriented, breaking down in front of cameras, Jake was a shadow, barely speaking, not crying, offering no public plea. Some people thought that looked like grief, but seasoned investigators call it something else: emotional distance or premeditation. If Jake knows more than he's saying, then every time we blame Rebecca, we're helping him succeed. Look again at the screenshots people captured: Jake standing behind the car, his eyes down, his hands tucked in, rigid, not searching, not shaking. Enhanced close-ups show something even colder: a man who isn't shocked, he's calculated, almost waiting. What if the real abductor never had to hit anyone, never had to flee, because he was the father from the start? It's guilt-tripping because we, the public, spent days tearing the mother apart. Comment sections calling her a monster, a liar, a murderer. Meanwhile, the man legally convicted of harming a child stayed silent, untouched, unquestioned by the public. While we blamed her, he might have been erasing every trace of what he did. And now, as these enhanced images circulate, people are finally asking, why did Jake's car get seized by investigators? Why was his home searched with cadaver dogs? Why is a man with a child abuse conviction being treated as if his silence is normal? Have we been looking at the wrong villain all along? As the camera zooms closer into his expressionless eyes in those images, one question becomes unavoidable. What is Jake Haro hiding? And why did we let him fade into the background while a baby disappeared? The question remains, where was Jake and why was he so calm? To understand his role, we have to rewind the timeline, not from Rebecca's version, but through Jake's presence, his movement, and his silence. On the morning of August 14th, while Rebecca was in the parking lot, Jake was not at work or at home with clear documentation. His alibi was not publicly confirmed. This alone raised internal questions with law enforcement. Friends say he didn't appear frantic. No public crying, no press conference, no desperate plea to the kidnapper. Instead, he posted nothing, said very little, and waited. When he finally appeared briefly on camera next to Rebecca, his body language was detached. No protective arm around her. No emotional breakdown, just a blank stare, nodding occasionally. That isn't shock, that is distance. And when fathers are innocent, they don't stand still while their child is missing. As Rebecca's story began to unravel, Jake didn't correct her. He didn't speak up. He let her contradict herself while he quietly stepped back. It looked less like confusion and more like strategy. And while all of this was happening, detectives were already piecing together his criminal past, the 2023 conviction for child cruelty. They didn't announce it immediately. They waited and watched. What kind of father, with a history of harming a child, quietly watches his infant son vanish and says almost nothing to the world? Even before the public knew, the police did. That explained why their attention shifted, not just to Rebecca, but directly to Jake. His silence wasn't grief. They started seeing it as something more sinister. A man who's done this before, a man who knows how to stay hidden, a man who might be watching Rebecca crumble as part of the plan, which is more unsettling. A mother who lies out of fear, or a father who says nothing at all, because he knows exactly where the child is. A history of violence that never went away. This isn't the first time Jake Haro was connected to violence involving a child, and that changes everything. In 2023, Jake was convicted of felony child cruelty. According to court records, it wasn't a minor incident. It involved serious harm to a previous child. This is not rumor or speculation. This is documented on paper, in the system. He was also arrested again this year for weapons-related charges, meaning the violence didn't stop in the past, it followed him. So we have a man who has a documented history of physically hurting a child, owned illegal weapons, was still on law enforcement radar, and now, his newborn son is missing. Are we really supposed to believe that's just a coincidence? When you look at it through that lens, this case changes. Rebecca might have lied, but maybe out of fear of him. The baby might not have vanished in a parking lot, but long before that, the story might have been constructed, not by a panicked mother, but by a father with experience harming children, and a talent for silence. Community members who previously defended him began to ask, wait, why didn't Jake speak publicly? Why didn't he show up at the vigil? Why didn't he plead for Emmanuel on television? The answer becomes chillingly clear. Maybe because he wasn't devastated. Maybe because he already knew exactly what happened to his son. Once this criminal past surfaced, organizations pulled support, especially the child advocacy group that withdrew reward money and assistance because they couldn't align with the family's lack of transparency. They didn't just walk away from the case, they walked away from Jake. So if a child protection group loses faith in the father, maybe that's the loudest statement of all. When law enforcement goes from interviewing you to taking your vehicle, it's no longer a missing child case. It's a criminal investigation. Just days after Emmanuel was reported missing, detectives showed up, not at Rebecca's location, but at Jake's home in Cabazon. They didn't ask politely. They came with a warrant. They seized his vehicle, loaded it onto a flatbed truck, and took it for forensic analysis. Why? Because that car might contain DNA evidence, traces of the baby's body fluids, proof that Emmanuel was never in that parking lot that day. They also brought in cadaver dogs, used only when they suspect decomposition. That means investigators were considering the possibility that Emmanuel was no longer alive, and that his body had been transported using Jake's car. If police believed Jake had nothing to do with it, they wouldn't need a warrant or dogs trained to detect death. Neighbors watched as detectives searched the trunk, pulled fabric seats from the interior, collected fibers and swabbed the carpets. Moments later, those same officers entered Jake's home with another warrant, collecting electronics, clothing, infant items, and possibly searching for traces of the baby's DNA inside the house. You don't raid someone's home and tow their car unless you believe the truth is hidden there. And the most chilling part, Jake did not protest. He didn't push back. He didn't even speak to the press. No outrage. No, you're making a mistake. Just silence. Law enforcement was now openly treating him, not just as Emmanuel's father, but as a person of interest, potentially the core suspect behind the baby's disappearance. And suddenly, everything Rebecca said, the lies, the story, the confusion, looked less like guilt and more like manipulation by someone much darker. Rebecca, liar or controlled pawn? Was she lying, or was she afraid of Jake? For days the world tore Rebecca apart, called her a liar, called her a murderer. But what if we were looking at the wrong kind of monster? Rebecca's interviews were inconsistent. Yes, her story changed. Yes, but what if those weren't signs of guilt, but signs of fear? Detectives noticed her shifting eyes, her trembling hands, her contradictions. But anyone who studied domestic violence knows victims controlled by a violent partner often lie, not for themselves, but to protect the one hurting them. Jake's presence in the background was always silent, but heavy. She may have lied about the attack because Jake forced her to. She may have said no cameras because Jake coached her to say it. She may have stopped cooperating because Jake told her what would happen if she kept talking. A woman can lie under pressure, a mother can be manipulated, but a 7-month-old baby cannot vanish unless someone physically removes him. The mother may be guilty of covering up out of fear, but the father has a history of violence, and a calmness only seen in people who know the truth. Detectives have not cleared Rebecca, they haven't charged her. But the bigger shift is this: they are slowly moving her from suspect to potential witness, someone who may have witnessed what Jake did and helped cover it out of terror, not malice. We might have blamed the symptom, while the disease stood right next to her. If Rebecca is a victim of Jake's manipulation, then he used her silence to buy time, time to hide, time to clean, time to remove evidence, all while the world tore her apart. Her lies may not be proof that she did it. They may be proof that she's protecting someone who already did. In every missing child case, there's a moment of hope when a foundation steps forward and says, "We'll help, we'll search, we'll put up money." That happened for Emmanuel, but then they walked away. At first, the Uvalde Foundation offered a reward and began assisting with search efforts. They provided volunteers, logistics, and visibility for Emmanuel's case. But when investigators revealed new evidence, Jake's criminal history, the lies around the camera footage, the seizure of the family vehicle, and Rebecca cutting off communication, the foundation made a rare and chilling decision. They withdrew all support. They pulled out their volunteers. They removed Emmanuel's name from their active campaign lists. For a child advocacy group to distance themselves that abruptly, you have to ask why. They issued a statement that basically said, "We cannot continue supporting a case that lacks transparency and integrity." Those words weren't directed at Rebecca alone. They were a clear signal that the organization believed someone close to the child was involved, and they didn't want to be part of a potential cover-up. And who does that description fit more than anyone else? Jake Haro, the child cruelty convict, the man whose car was seized, the father who never pleaded publicly. For the outside world to walk away, it means they no longer believe this was a kidnapping. They believe it was a crime from within the family. This changed everything. It told the public, this isn't random. This isn't unsolved because of lack of leads. This is unsolved because someone, likely the father, is hiding it. As the foundation left, The narrative shifted completely from find the stranger to which parent is covering for the other and which one actually hurt the baby. A child protection group gave up because they believed the danger wasn't out there, it was inside the home. When FBI profilers and criminal analysts looked at this case, they said something that changed the direction of the entire investigation. This doesn't look impulsive, it looks organized. According to behavioral specialists, fathers who have previously abused children and are under legal pressure often display a pattern. They isolate the family, they control the narrative, they remove the child from public view before anyone notices something is wrong. And that's exactly what experts believe might have happened here. Possible orchestrated pattern. Emmanuel could have been harmed before August 14th. Jake might have forced Rebecca to help cover it up. The parking lot kidnapping story may have been created as a distraction, buying time to clean up and stage a believable attack. Rebecca's inconsistency could be from trying to follow Jake's instructions out of fear, while Jake stayed quiet, knowing Rebecca would be blamed first. It's classic domination psychology. Let her fall apart publicly, while he remains quiet and cooperative. That silence becomes his disguise. Forensic psychologists have confirmed his lack of emotion is a red flag. His history of violence makes him highly capable. His silence is not normal parental grief. It is indicative of possible detachment after the crime. Then comes the most disturbing possibility. Jake may have orchestrated the entire disappearance, after harming Emmanuel, disposing of evidence, coaching Rebecca to call 911, and then stepping back, letting her become the face of confusion. That's why he had a lawyer early. He spoke very little. He may have already known the outcome, and felt no need to panic. This wasn't a random moment of rage. This might have been calculated, planned, and executed by a father who has already proven he can harm a child. When criminal profilers looked into the Emmanuel Haro case, one thing became disturbingly clear. This did not look like a sudden act of panic. It looked planned. Jake Haro has a prior conviction for felony child cruelty. Reports state that in the 2023 incident, the injuries were not accidental. They were deliberate and violent. This isn't a man who simply made a mistake once. It's a man who knows how to hurt a child, then move on with a straight face. The experts note that people with Jake's profile often display a chilling pattern. They isolate their partner and child. They control the story from behind the scenes. They create confusion around the timeline, so no one knows when the child actually disappeared. They remain unemotional in public, because they have already emotionally disconnected from the crime. Now apply that to Emmanuel. Jake might have harmed Emmanuel at home, hours or even a full day before Rebecca made the 911 call. He could have coerced Rebecca into cooperating with a fake kidnapping narrative, threatening her or simply terrifying her enough that she followed whatever he said. The parking lot attack may have been scripted or forced on her. Her contradictions, her shaking voice, those could be interpreted as a woman trying to remember what Jake told her to say, and failing. It's not confusion, it's fear. And fear makes people lie badly. Psychological control profilers believe Jake's calmness, lack of interviews, no public outrage, are signs of someone who already knows exactly what happened. Someone who doesn't need to beg the world for help, because there is no help needed. The act is already done. He did not appear at most public searches. He gave no emotional plea like innocent fathers usually do. Instead, he lawyered up early, which could suggest he was preparing for a criminal defense, not searching for a missing son. One expert said privately, "This man is acting like a suspect, not a grieving father." This leads to the darkest theory. Jake orchestrated the entire disappearance as a cover-up, and Rebecca became the perfect scapegoat. He could have disposed of Emmanuel's body long before the police arrived, forced Rebecca to make the 911 call, stood back and watched the world crucify her, all while his own criminal background stayed hidden, until now. When a child disappears, and the father with a violent record stays quiet, that silence doesn't comfort investigators. It alarms them. And now, investigators are no longer treating Jake as a grieving parent. They are treating him as the central threat. At first, the community gathered around Rebecca. They lit candles, cried for Emmanuel, and whispered about the stranger who took him. But once Jake's criminal history surfaced, the whispers turned into rage. When people found out he had already been convicted of child cruelty, the tone in the town changed. Parents removed his face from missing posters. Online forums started making threads titled, "Is Jake the real suspect?" Even those who hated Rebecca's lies began to say, "Wait, she might have been forced." During the vigils, people started asking why Jake was barely showing up, or standing at a distance, refusing to speak. Some neighbors said it didn't look like grief, it looked like concealment. A father who doesn't talk about his missing son, that's not normal, that's terrifying. Local Facebook groups that once blamed the mother began posting crime documents, mugshots, and arrest records about Jake, their anger shifting with every new update. Rumors began spreading that people saw Jake burning trash behind his house in the days after Emmanuel vanished. Police never confirmed that publicly, but the rumor itself was enough to ignite fear. Suddenly Rebecca seemed like a puppet, and Jake looked like the puppeteer. Even volunteers said they no longer felt safe helping, because as one woman posted, "If the father did something to that child, I don't want to be part of a fake search." At this point, the community didn't just want Emmanuel found, they wanted Jake arrested. Some even wrote to detectives, begging for charges. "We know he did something. Just prove it." Nothing unites a community like protecting children. But nothing enrages them more than realizing the threat came from the child's own parent. At this point, we're not just asking where is Emmanuel, we're asking what did Jake do? And more importantly, how long has he known the answer? The timeline is shattered, the mother's story is falling apart, the vehicle has been seized. Cadaver dogs were sent into Jake's home, and yet, Jake has not spoken a single honest word to the world about where Emmanuel is.
I noticed a smell for my baby, so I wanted to change it before I walked into the store.
Law enforcement sources say privately
took him
that the search has shifted from a rescue to a potential recovery.
And I laid him
that
on
means
the
they fear
chair.
Emmanuel is no longer
And I had his
alive, and
diapers
they're
right
trying
here.
to find remains.
And then
Think
someone
about
said,
that.
"Hola."
A 7-month-old baby
And
may
I couldn't
have
even
died,
turn, and I was
quietly
just-
behind closed
I don't
doors,
remember
while
nothing.
his father
I
calmly
got
let
up
the
off
world
the
blame
floor and I
someone
didn't
else.
see my
A father
child.
with a history of child
Someone
abuse
took him from
is
me.
now the last
A
known
little
adult
lazy
connected to a missing infant.
was the only thing
And
that's
because he
distinctive
refuses
about him
to
that
talk, we're left with only one
he has
brutal
no
truth.
birthmarks.
Emmanuel's life may have ended before the 911
Beautiful,
call was
healthy
ever
baby
made.
boy.
Rebecca might have lied to
7-month-year-old
cover
baby
it
boy.
up, or she may have helped Jake dispose of the truth out of fear. But the deeper the investigation goes, the more it points back to him, not her. If Jake harmed Emmanuel days earlier, he had time to create a story, time to hide the body, time to tell Rebecca what to say. If Jake forced her to go along with it, her lies make sense, not because she's guilty, but because she's terrified. If Jake drove somewhere with that baby in his car, the forensic evidence in that vehicle may soon reveal everything. Investigators are now working to reconstruct Jake's movements before the day of the disappearance, interviewing neighbors to see if anyone heard a scream, a fight, or saw him leave late at night carrying something. And the scariest part, Jake never once asked the public to help find his son. Not once. That silence is louder than any confession. So in this session, we are left with a painful, almost unbearable question. Is Emmanuel gone because one man decided that a child's life was worth less than his own freedom? And if so, how long has Jake been hiding the truth? A day? A week? Longer? Until we know, the real nightmare isn't the confusion. It's imagining that the person who took Emmanuel's life is still walking free, protected by silence and technicalities, while the baby's body could be hidden somewhere only Jake knows. This isn't over, and Jake shouldn't be free. A 7-month-old baby disappears. A mother breaks down on camera. A father with a history of violence remains silent. Evidence is stacking up, but justice remains still. The case of Emmanuel Haro is no longer just about a missing child. It has become a mirror held up to society, showing us how easy it is for a dangerous man to hide behind quietness.
I noticed a smell from my baby, so I wanted to change it before I walked into the store.
And to let the world blame someone else while he
took him
locks the truth
out of the
away.
car
Jake
seat.
hasn't been arrested yet. He hasn't
And I
been
laid him
charged.
on the
Legally, he still walks freely.
And I had
but
his
morally,
diapers
in the
right
court
here.
of conscience, many
then
believe
someone
he is
said,
already
"Hola."
guilty. If a father
And I
can
couldn't
hurt
even
a
turn,
child
and that was
once,
just-
and the system
I don't
hands
remember
that
nothing.
child back to him,
I got
then
up
that
off
system
the
has
floor and
blood
I
on
didn't
its
see my
hands, too.
child.
We cannot allow this
Someone
story
took
to
him from
fade
me.
like so many
A little
others.
lazy
Because if Emmanuel is
was the only
gone,
thing
if
that's
Jake
distinctive
did it,
about
then
him
letting
that,
the case go cold is the final
he has no
betrayal.
birthmarks.
It would mean not just that a baby died, but that nobody cared enough
Beautiful,
to hold the
healthy
guilty
baby boy.
accountable. To the
7-month-year-old
viewers watching
baby
this,
boy.
if your heart aches right now, use it. Don't scroll past. Don't stay silent like Jake.
Speak up, share the story, keep the pressure on. Every share, every comment, every voice demanding justice keeps Emmanuel's name alive and keeps Jake from disappearing into the shadows. This channel, Detective Max, does not exist for entertainment. It exists because children like Emmanuel are dying in silence, and because someone needs to be brave enough to say enough. Let this video be a warning and a war cry. We will not let a 7-month-old be forgotten. We will not allow a man with a known violent past to hide behind legal technicalities. We will not let this case disappear the way the child did. He was 7 months old, and someone knows exactly what happened to him. If that someone is Jake Haro, then justice must find him. And it starts with us refusing to go quiet. This is Detective Max. If you stand for truth and justice, then stand with us until Emmanuel is found, until the guilty are exposed, until every child's life means something again.